Welcome to the weather forecast on CIA TV channel. Dear friends, in today's forecast, we'll break down what you need to know about the weather that will affect the United States over the next 7 days. A major weather pattern change is coming to the United States over the next few days, expected across the Great Plains, Midwest, and Ohio Valley. Additionally, severe weather is returning across parts of the United States with strong winds, large hail, and even a few tornadoes possible. Areas to watch could form early next week. There are a few areas I'm watching right off the southeastern coast of the United States, through Florida, and into the northern Bahamas. And we'll start with what's going on across the country today. We've got some big storms back in the Central Plains. We've got some pretty high winds and hail back in eastern Colorado and western Kansas. All of this is coming from a new trough of low pressure that's now moving back over the west coast, which is expected to bring more severe weather as we head into tomorrow and even as we get closer to Friday across the Great Plains and perhaps even back into the Midwest. The weather is going to change a lot over the next few days, and the biggest reason is because the average wind pattern is changing dramatically with all that cold air coming in from Canada. So let's take a look at the average wind pattern right now. Oh, we've got a big trough of low pressure that's sitting over Northern California this morning. We've also got a ridge that's building across Texas and then a little low pressure system over the Great Lakes. What's going to happen over the next couple of days is we're going to see this low pressure system along the west coast become severe again, especially across the northern plains on Friday. While high pressure will continue to build across the central and southern plains, we're likely to see a lot of warm air build up anywhere east of the Rocky Mountains throughout the weekend. We don't really have a northwesterly flow anywhere strong enough to bring cold weather. Instead, we're going to have a severe weather pattern that's going to return tomorrow through Saturday into Sunday across the Great Plains, maybe even a small portion of the Midwest. And then finally next week, we're going to continue to see an active weather pattern across the northern plains and Midwest with a couple of low pressure systems moving over the Rocky Mountains. Oh wow, along the Gulf Coast, the southeast, and even along the east coast, it's looking pretty warm and dry for the next 7 to 10 days. We've got a very small area of above average temperatures across the Great Plains, cooler than normal along the west coast, and temperatures around average along the east coast. We're going to be watching a large area of warm air build up across the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. And into early next week, that warm air will continue across the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. Back on the East Coast, we've got some scattered showers and thunderstorms across Florida and even as far north as southern New England. But overall, pretty nice weather everywhere else in between. From Louisiana and South Texas all the way up to northern New England, conditions are pretty much perfect. The only area that might be slightly different would be Florida and a small portion of the East Coast. We're also keeping an eye out for the possibility of some severe weather returning over the next 7 days. We're expecting some scattered showers and isolated storms anywhere from Colorado back to North Dakota, and a bit of activity back in Florida and South Texas. High pressure is building across the Northeast and across Canada as we head into Friday and Saturday. This is largely due to a large low pressure system that's sitting near the Rocky Mountains. We should have at least some activity here across the Dakotas and Nebraska. However, this will be primarily across the high plains, where I expect at least some isolated severe weather to return with damaging winds, large hail, and maybe even a few tornadoes. And then on Sunday and Monday, we'll have another round of severe weather across the northern plains. There's not much to look forward to in the Midwest until Sunday, which is a day where we could see some severe weather trying to make an appearance. But overall, there's nothing significant in the forecast right now. Early next week, scattered showers and thunderstorms will continue across the northern plains and Midwest. Rain will also continue across the southeast. And then, anywhere in between. We're talking about just the chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms from now through next Thursday. There are a couple of areas to watch that could be forming over the next week. There could be a cyclone forming. A broad cyclone here, not a tropical storm in the Western Caribbean. But this area is going to be another area that we're going to be watching to see if there are any cyclones forming between Jamaica, Mexico and Belize. You can see heavy rain off the coast of the Carolinas, Georgia. This is Florida, just north of Freeport, north of the Bahamas. Some heavy rains have been adding to the rain and storms across Cuba. We're in the Caribbean and we're looking at some tropical waves, but we're going to see a new wave come in. And with that wave could eventually form. But fortunately, in the short term, the air here is pretty dry. So when these tropical waves move in there, oh wow, the dry air is going to eat them up, it's going to prevent them from growing. I want to dive into this in the Eastern Pacific, including Mexico. We've got a new tropical wave that's going to eventually move across the Eastern Caribbean over the next couple of days. This is near the Bahamas and Florida. A moisture front is moving across the Western Caribbean and is tracking tropical waves up the coast of Africa. So as we move forward into the weekend, keep an eye on this, rain is starting to pick up here. And there's new tropical waves coming up the coast of Africa. We'll see how they do with the dry air. Now keep a close eye on things here as we track Saturday into Sunday. And then as we get into the middle of next week, there's rain accumulating from Jamaica back into Belize, Mexico, Cuba. Watching the Cayman Islands and then the US model, and some of the models are trying to develop a tropical wave that's really dissipated. So as we head into next week, we could have some development near the southeast coast of the US and look out into the Western Caribbean. So as we head into Thursday, scattered areas of rain, Cancun, Cozumel, Ladaville, Hopkins towards Roatan, look anywhere from Montego Bay back to Giselle, Santo Domingo for rain chances. Scattered storm chances back to Puerto Rico. As we head into Friday, you'll see rain start to pick up, even Merida and Camper are coming back. Over parts of Florida, heading into Cuba, the Bahamas for some rain. And as we head into the weekend, rain is building up Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. A weak tropical wave is trying to move through the Eastern Caribbean this weekend. However, that could still bring us some heavy rains in some of the islands. Could be coming across the Avalon Peninsula. Scattered storms towards the foothills, back into the Rocky Mountains. And then you can see Manitoba looking towards Ontario, the Great Lakes for some of that extra rain. But there's an area near Florida and the Bahamas that could change a little bit as we go through the weekend. And of course, the water temperatures there are very warm. So that's going to be something we'll be watching over the next couple of days. In the Central Caribbean, but across the eastern United States, through Bermuda, the Maritimes. Across the entire Atlantic Canada, rougher seas, off the east coast of the United States and Canada of course. But there's also some heavier rain. Areas north of the Bahamas. There's a good chance of scattered storms. Cuba, Jamaica, some other areas have had some thunderstorms or at least some rain over the last couple of days. The Cayman Islands as well, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. Scattered showers and thunderstorms around most of the heavy rain in Martin South, not too much through Dominica. But if there are showers or even thunderstorms, it could cause a little damage. Trinidad, we could see a little more, where there could be a few spots of rain. Be careful with some scattered showers. St. Vince of the Grenadines, Grenada, St. Lucia, Barbados, Suriname, not as much. Northern Guyana, rain is likely. Scattered rain through Venezuela, Colombia, parts of Costa Rica, Panama. We have a lot of microclimates, but this one will eventually show up near Nicaragua. Maybe a little higher in some spots in and around Mexico City. We've got a flood threat. we're going back to Texas. Not so much. You see, it's a little quieter in the southern United States, except for Florida and the coastal areas, near Georgia and the Corollas. That's where some heavy rains are expected, especially in Florida and the northern Bahamas. We will continuously update the storm situation in the next news. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on CIA TV channel. We're going to break down what you need to know about the weather that's going to affect the United States over the next 7 days. We're going to dive into the pattern that's coming up, and we're going to talk about temperatures, where we're seeing some changes going on. Things are about to reverse quickly in terms of what's going to happen in the United States. We're also going to talk about hurricane conditions, where there's going to be some changes, but it's actually looking pretty similar to what we've been talking about, and fortunately the tropics are really inactive as we're getting closer to the peak of hurricane season. We're going to be deep into the tropics, tracking some tropical waves offshore. This is going to be intensifying some showers and storms as we move through Puerto Rico, the United States, the British Virgin Islands, even Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, back to Haiti and the Dominican Republic throughout the week. However, the threat of flooding will eventually come to us. Now, as we look at the 6 to 10 day forecast, you can see above normal temperatures across the Rocky Mountains, especially the plains and the Midwest, the Deep South, the Ohio Valley is there. And then really the only area in the country that's going to hold on to the cool air. From the 14th to the 18th, that's going to be the East Coast. Oh wow! As this trough of low pressure continues to push further east, we're also going to see some near normal conditions in the Southwest. We've seen that over the next few days. The next 8 to 14 day forecast, which is from the 16th to the 22nd, we're going to see the west warming up. But this warm air over the central states is still there, and then we're going to lose the below normal temperatures over the East Coast. But obviously they're still expecting the coolest than normal conditions on the East Coast. For the Northwest as well as the western parts of Canada. That's contributed to this pattern being severely below normal, especially in the central states, and also the eastern states, as you can see. And that's really impressive because temperatures are 10 to 15 degrees below normal here. It's really unbelievable. Those are really impressive numbers, especially even for late fall into winter. This is completely different from anything I've ever seen, in terms of how cold below normal. This air has actually been very cold. So, this is really unusual. We're seeing some variations. Tuesday, we've got a little bit in the northwest, a little bit north of the Rocky Mountains, and a little bit in some of the Midwest. And you can see South Texas and South Florida. The same goes for New England here as well as the upper Midwest, but a lot of the weather here is more tropical, especially in areas that are further south than the rest of the eastern states. Oh wow! That's why we don't have rain in Florida and really no rain anywhere else. If it moves from west to east, it hits Florida, but it disappears everywhere else. If it moves from east to west, which is a little less common, still hits Florida, but it disappears everywhere else. By Friday the 12th, we're looking at the Rocky Mountains again, parts of Florida, maybe parts of North Carolina. And maybe parts of the Midwest here will get showers, but nothing of note. Saturday the 13th, a few areas here to watch. Northern Plains, parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes, and then also nearby. I just want to say eastern North Carolina on Saturday the 13th will have showers and thunderstorms. Sunday the 14th is pretty similar, Florida, Virginia or North Carolina, Virginia there, Ohio Valley. Midwest, Great Lakes, and then still some plains here, but you're expecting to see some bigger storms somewhere across the country than the current average. Look, by Monday the 15th next week, parts of the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley are the focus here again. Tuesday the 16th, this broad low will be over this area and continue to bring showers and thunderstorms. But as of Wednesday the 17th, nothing has changed too much. We're seeing some of the quad states, then the plains and some of the Rocky Mountains. We're going to see showers and thunderstorms. And we're still seeing similar areas here. The Great Lakes could expand into some of the Appalachian Mountains and the Mid-Atlantic in general on Wednesday the 17th, Thursday the 18th. This low is finally going to be more in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We're seeing more storms forming across the central states. So temperatures are starting to pick up a little bit. The precipitation that you'd expect to see, but not too much. But hopefully this is a trend of something that's actually happening. Saturday the 20th. It looks like there's going to be more activity in that part of the country because we have a low in the upper Midwest. There's clearly a little bit of warm air that might want to expand into that area. Oh, Sunday, we're going to have storms again in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast on the 21st. Then on Monday, the 22nd, here, it's going to continue with some showers. So, let's look at the anomalies. And above average mostly in the Rocky Mountains, the northern and central plains, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, where the storms are just moving through and moving very slowly. So it's leading to days of showers. Impressive. Oh, we're seeing drier weather again from Texas and Oklahoma all the way down to the rest of the deep south and up here in the southeast. That's our biggest problem area going forward. We're tracking some tropical waves offshore. But the air is very dry out there, which is also helping to limit their development somewhat. So here we are in the Caribbean. This is an old tropical wave. This is going to bring some showers and storms as we move through Puerto Rico, the U.S., the British Virgin Islands, even Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts on us. Back into Haiti and the Dominican Republic throughout the week. Some rain coming back through parts of northern Venezuela, northern Colombia. There's some heavier rain overnight from El Salvador back into Guatemala. We've been tracking Providencia, San Andreas, parts of Mexico. The Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico will be more active and we'll have some scattered storms. Jamaica, back into the Cayman Islands, and back into Cuba. This is a heavier area of rain. The air has dropped and then just hovered over the northern Bahamas, back into Florida. Heavy rains over the next few days. These waters are really warm and are actually warming up. Look around Jamaica, back to the Cayman Islands and Cuba. We're running around 31 degrees Celsius, pushing 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This Caribbean area, even much of the Bahamas, is really warming up. Nothing's moving through yet. We're in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, back to the United States. Here's Bermuda. Here's all the heavy rains here. Here's where we're tracking that blip in the Atlantic. Look at the rains picking up as we head back into the Western Caribbean. And then we've got two strong tropical waves. Haiti and the Dominican Republic are still under hurricane watches. Another tropical wave is moving in. So we're going to be tracking scattered storms, Dominica, back to Anguilla, and there's going to be some more rain as we head back to the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico. Back to the United States, a couple of larger systems moving through next week. And then on Wednesday, there's still scattered areas of rain and storms, Puerto Rico, the U.S., and the British Virgin Islands. We're going to start to get some rain developing. We could see some flooding and potential tropical development this week. Now, look over here. Kiko is going to pass north of Hawaii, a weakening tropical storm at that point moving north. This is a day, 2 days from now, it's going to weaken rapidly as it approaches the Hawaiian Islands. And you can see it here back across the northern Bahamas, tracking South Georgia, back into Florida. Some really heavy rain, and then a couple of new systems are moving in. And again, rain here. Even parts of North Carolina and South Carolina, especially along the coast, coastal Georgia towards the island. Specific heavy rain. Cuba, Jamaica, we're still going to have some scattered storms. On and off, the Cayman Islands, but Haiti and the Dominican Republic, where we've had some thunderstorms, very fast currents. We've had some issues with those river crossings with some heavy rain. Over 100 millimeters of rain, scattered storms, Puerto Rico, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands. This little tropical wave is going to be active Tuesday into Wednesday. So St. Bastasia, St. Kitson, St. Martin. We're going to have some scattered showers, Antigua, Barbuda from St. Bart's, even down to Montserrat, Guadeloupe, scattered showers. Dominica South is looking a little scattered. Watch Venezuela for showers and storms, but there's still some additional rain. Guatemala and El Salvador, even the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico, Belize, Honduras has an increased chance of rain. Scattered areas of rain and storms. Going back to Belize and you'll see across Mexico some heavier rain. Extreme South Texas has some of that rain as well. You see Corpus Christi, some rain potential. Back to Brownsville and then along the coast. As you see here very close to the coast, coastal Georgia, coastal Corollas has a chance of heavier rain. Scattered thunderstorms will continue over the next few days. Across Cuba, Costa Rica, Panama, the chance of rain has decreased a little bit. Still need to watch for flooding in some of the surrounding areas, for sure. Mexico City, some rain starting to accumulate again and scattered thunderstorms. Campe, Merida, Cancun, Cosmo, East Coast, North Coast, toward the west coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. So keep an eye on the tropical waves in the Atlantic, the Western Caribbean from Belize through Jamaica. We're going to break down what you need to know about the weather that's going to affect the United States over the next 7 days. We're going to be deep into the tropics. Looking at the Western Caribbean, some rain that's building up and then moving back here, the northern Bahamas, the southeast United States, we're going to have some developments over the next 6, 7, 8 days. We've got some areas of rain and some thunderstorms. But the flood threat is finally going to be with us. And finally, a big change in weather is going to be happening across the United States. This winter looks very strange. In addition, severe weather is possible across the East Coast with strong winds, hail, and maybe even a few tornadoes. Now, a concern for some of the points around the southeastern United States back through the western Caribbean as a weak tropical wave moves through, if it pushes into the Caribbean, the Bahamas, the Gulf of Mexico, and pushes through those areas of high heat content, that could help it strengthen quickly. And that would be a concern as we start to see a little bit more development. So we need to keep an eye on that, especially as the models are hinting at a little bit of development near the Bahamas and the southeastern United States and into the western Caribbean. And of course, keep an eye on the tropical wave that's going to start to build up more later this month. So looking ahead, that's on Tuesday. Now, that tropical disturbance is going to start moving into the northeastern Caribbean. That's going to increase our rain chances Tuesday into Wednesday. Even Wednesday back into Puerto Rico and the British and U.S. Virgin Islands. Still active near the southeast coast of the United States. Tracking the western Caribbean. As we head into Friday next week, you'll see some additional rainfall here with the tropical disturbance moving in over Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and rain accumulating in the western Caribbean. So keep an eye on the western Caribbean, Jamaica. Back to Belize to see if there's anything lifting up toward the Gulf, and keep an eye on the southeast coast of the United States, keep an eye on the Corollas. And then as we head into the middle of the month, here's what I've been saying. These tropical waves will dissipate, but those dry pockets may not necessarily be there by mid to late month. Which means there's a higher chance that some of those tropical waves will form. Now, we've been tracking some showers and thunderstorms since last night. The U.S. and British Virgin Islands. We've got some showers and thunderstorms around us as we go through the day. We'll keep an eye on that. And then you'll see the rain slowly picking up again. Scattered showers, Yucatan, Peninsula, Mexico, a little heavier, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, parts of Honduras, down into Costa Rica, Panama. Some of that rain and tracking into northern Colombia. And then as we head into tomorrow, scattered areas of rain and thunderstorms around us are still active in some of those same locations. The tropical disturbance that's really broken up is starting to get closer. So Antigua, Barbuda, Saint Martin, Saint Barts, Anguilla, back into the US and British Virgin Islands. And then finally, by midweek, we'll see the rain chances increase. You see, by Wednesday, the rain chances start to increase as the tropical disturbance moves in. And then you see the western Caribbean Sea still very active with some additional rain. Same thing in the Bahamas. North through the Corollas, toward Florida and Georgia, the surf is going to start to pick up today. The seas are going to be very dangerous and the big swells. The surf and the rip currents are going to really threaten us as we head into Monday into Wednesday. And then by Thursday, you're going to see that area pick up a little bit to the north. And there's another system coming through the Great Lakes as you go back from Manitoba, through Ontario and Quebec. And there's a rain band that's hugging the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina. And then as the week goes on, we'll see if we get any storms that are trying to form near the Bahamas, Florida, back through the Carolinas and Georgia, Bermuda. We'll just keep an eye on how close some of these rains and storms are. Now, the seas are going to pick up a little bit. Caribbean, not bad. But as soon as this tropical disturbance comes in and the tropical wave actually comes in, that's going to cause the seas to rise. So as we head into Tuesday, the Atlantic sea lanes are going to get a little rougher. Look at all the rain that's tracking Freeport back into South Florida, picking up along the coast. We're going to see some spots get a couple inches, 4, 5 inches. Some places get 100 to 125 millimeters. Scattered storms, Puerto Rico, British Virgin Islands and US Virgin Islands. We had some showers last night and this morning near Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe. Some rain will be affected, but we will see the tropical disturbance move in on Tuesday. We will have some spots of about 25 millimeters of rain, Sabasia, St. Kitts, then back to Antigua, Barbuda, St. Martin, St. Barts, then back here, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vince, the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad, Tobago, maybe some light showers. Same as we go through Suriname, Guyana, northern Venezuela. But these are some spots of heavy rain. Some spots not so much. Same situation in Panama and Costa Rica. Other spots are completely affected with some spots of 150 millimeters of rain. Tracking Guatemala and El Salvador. And there could be scattered showers in some areas. Yucatan Peninsula, Baez, Honduras. We had some of that overnight. Looking at Nicaragua, San Andreas and Providencia as well as we head back into western Mexico. Some heavy showers even as you head toward Terry and look at South Texas. The chances of rain falling are higher. You see, towards Jacksonville, north through the Outer Banks of North Carolina, some of the rain could be just offshore, but if it's close enough, like coastal areas of South Carolina and North Carolina, we could get a few inches of rain over the next few days. So we're still active in Jamaica. So the areas to watch as we head into next week, keep an eye on the area close to home. The Western Caribbean, the Southeast and the Bahamas, and watch for the new tropical disturbance that's coming into the Caribbean. This winter could be one of the weirdest in years. Arctic winds, fierce snowstorms, and even severe weather outbreaks. This winter is likely to bring much more volatile conditions and intensity across the United States. The different impacts to the United States during the winter occur when the Pacific Ocean is warmer than average. This increases wetness and more frequent storms in the south. The risk of flooding along the Gulf Coast and California coast, and milder, drier winters in the north. It also tends to limit Arctic outbreaks in the Midwest and Northeast. La Niñas typically bring more winter storms to the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rocky Mountains, and they allow Arctic winds to flow into the Midwest and Northeast more frequently. We typically see a lot of variability with sharp swings between warm and cold, along with the potential for severe storms. This is because we've had some strong Arctic winds as a lot of strong cold air swept through the Midwest and Northeast, bringing in very cold air from Canada, causing some big winter storms. And we've had a really blanket of cold air coming down over most of the United States this winter because of a lot of Arctic winds blowing in from Canada. And note that in the Midwest, we've had below average temperatures in those areas. Back on the West Coast, we've had below average precipitation, leading to a major drought across California, Nevada, and even Oregon. However, there are some areas that have had above average precipitation and snowfall, including areas like the Great Lakes, where we've seen some big lake effect snowfalls. Additionally, the East Coast has had above average precipitation anywhere from Connecticut to Florida, with some heavy snowfalls occurring this winter. I think we're going to see below average temperatures, especially in the northern plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley, where we're probably going to see a large area where we're going to have a lot of cold fronts that sweep through the region on a very regular basis, which is going to lead to below average temperatures. And I think we're going to have a harsh winter when it comes to cold weather, especially in the Dakotas and maybe even the Great Lakes. On the other hand, I think we're going to see above average temperatures actually farther north, where above average temperatures are possible across much of Florida, but also southern and central Texas and across the West Coast. And I actually think we're going to see above average precipitation and snowfall across much of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast when it's actually pretty dry across most of the country. I think the most important area that we're going to be watching for the potential for more severe weather outbreaks is going to be across the lower Mississippi River Valley, from Louisiana and Arkansas all the way west to South Carolina. And we'll start with what's going on across the country today. We still have a very strong northwesterly wind coming out of Canada, which continues to bring very cold weather into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, and then back along the West Coast. This is where we have a big ridge that's forming right now across the Rocky Mountains, which is helping to keep things warm. As we get into the latter part of this week and early next week, the low-pressure system will move out and consolidate just north of New England, which will bring some cooler weather across New England. But eventually, we'll see this ridge develop further, and we'll start to see warm air build back up across the Great Plains and the Midwest on Wednesday and Thursday. Basically, it's going to bring very warm weather across the Great Plains, the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. By Wednesday and Thursday, that warm air will bring above average temperatures across the northern plains and Midwest. So this is still about 8 days away. But I think severe weather could return in the longer term. We will continuously update the storm situation in the next news. We're going to break down what you need to know about the weather that will affect the United States over the next 7 days. We're going to be deep into the tropics because we have a developing area just east of the Lesser Antilles, and there's also a Category 4 hurricane in the Pacific heading toward Hawaii. However, the threat of flooding will eventually be with us in other areas in the short term, which will also bring flooding. Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Costa Rica, Panama, Jamaica. We're going to see some storms. And finally, a major change in weather is going to be happening in the United States. In addition, severe weather is possible across the East Coast with strong winds, hail, and maybe even a few tornadoes. We're in the Caribbean. This is a tropical disturbance. This big area north of Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, we're seeing some flooding. Nicaragua. I'll show you the rainfall totals. Huge rainfall totals. There are still scattered areas of rain. We had some severe thunderstorms yesterday in parts of the Cayman Islands, Cuba, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Haiti. We'll see some more. The Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico and Trinidad and Tobago. There's a very high chance of rain today. Rain will move into northeastern Venezuela and Grenada, with the potential for flooding. Look at Hawaii. This is Kiko watching. This is what's left of Lorena. We'll look at some rainfall totals in Texas, New Mexico and Mexico as we go. The US, European, Canadian models and the Icon model, all four major models are saying that this storm will not develop into a tropical storm or hurricane. A tropical wave that could cause flooding. And then just see if it tries to regenerate as it moves closer to the Bahamas and back into the Caribbean. So there's a very low chance that it's going to develop into a hurricane. We're going to be watching this throughout the duration of this tropical wave to see if it's going to cause flooding. As we get into Tuesday into Wednesday, that's when the tropical wave starts moving in. Rain will increase. Dominica, Saint Martin, Anguille, Antigua, Barbuda, then back into the British and US Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. So there's a couple of things going on here that we really need to pay attention to over the next couple of days. So this Thursday is going to be additional rain from that tropical disturbance, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and that flood threat. So I'll be keeping a close eye on the development of the tropical depression. I'll also be keeping a close eye on it as it slowly moves back into Bice. There's a chance of a hurricane developing right here all week in the Western Caribbean. And then a new tropical wave coming in later this week. Scattered rain in some areas but widespread flooding is possible, so stay alert. Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. And then as we head into tomorrow, still scattered storms. Jamaica back into Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and you'll see some additional rain. St. Vincent, the Grenadines will get some rain. Bahamas, Central Bahamas, even Southern Bahamas, rain potential. But as we get out in time, by Monday, you could see the next tropical disturbance coming in. So, on Tuesday, we'll be watching this one. Right now, we don't see any development from this one, but some of the rain will start to accumulate and move north. We'll see if any of those storms move up the Gulf. So there's a couple of things to really watch over the next couple of days. This is a big one. This is a strong storm, a major hurricane right here. This is Kiko. This is Hawaii. So we're in the Pacific, back in the Central Pacific. There's going to be weakening. Not a lot today, but more tomorrow as we head into Monday. Keep an eye on Hawaii. But this storm is going to move very close to Hawaii as a tropical storm or just a weakening system. Keep an eye out for some of those remnants. But as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday, there's a chance that some tropical storms will impact the area. Most of the models are keeping tropical storm conditions to the north. But if there's any shift south, that could bring more significant weather. So we'll be following that together. Now, we're going to look at some areas of rain. We're tracking near Florida, north of the Bahamas. That's what happened near Cuba and the Cayman Islands. Some of the larger storms will come in from Quebec, moving toward New Brunswick. Watch for the remnants of Lena. Just watch for some rain here. But there's still some rain. New Brunswick, New England. Scattered storms today into tomorrow moving toward Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, Cape Cod, and we'll get some showers in Falmouth and Bourne. There's some rain developing toward the southeast United States. So, you'll get hit by corollas as you move south of Cape Patties. The chance for rain increases as we head into Monday. Some larger thunderstorms are possible. Over 100 millimeters of rain. Watch for the Bahamas, not just the northern Bahamas, but some scattered areas of rain in the central and southern parts. And the rain will be heavier, especially in southern Florida and the Keys at times. Scattered rain. Jamaica, higher chance of rain. Cayman Islands, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Very concerned about rivers in Puerto Rico. scattered areas of thunderstorms, and then Puerto Rico back into the northeastern Caribbean. We'll be watching Tuesday, Wednesday, even into Thursday to see the higher flood potential as the tropical disturbance moves in. But look at these massive totals. Panama, Costa Rica, parts of Colombia, major flooding. Coastal areas of Nicaragua, especially the Caribbean, some spots over 150 millimeters of rain. Inland areas, flood watch across Mexico and then scattered rain in areas. But this area of New Mexico could get about 3 inches of rain scattered across Texas. So keep an eye on the rivers and the risk of flooding here. And there's some heavier rain to come. And we'll start with what's going on across the country today. Back in the Northeast, we're starting to see a trough of low pressure moving east. A really strong southwesterly flow is going to be in place today across New England and much of the Northeast, bringing the risk of severe weather with strong winds and possible tornadoes this afternoon. And we'll look at the gusty winds and the moderate winds. Here's what's going on right now. We still have a very strong northwesterly flow coming out of Canada, which continues to bring very cold weather into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. That's going to continue through the weekend. Same with the Northeast. A big low pressure system is just north of New England, and then back along the west coast. This is where we have a big mountain range that's building up right now across the Rocky Mountains, which is helping to keep things warm. Now, as we head into the latter part of this week and early next week, the low pressure system will move out and consolidate just north of New England, which will bring cooler weather across New England. But eventually, we'll see this band of low pressure develop further, and we'll start to see warm air build back up across the Great Plains and Midwest on Monday and Tuesday. By Wednesday and Thursday, the weather pattern will change a lot. Basically, it will bring very warm weather across the Great Plains, Midwest, and Ohio Valley. Additionally, there's a big low pressure system that's likely to develop later next week west of the Rocky Mountains. If it can make it across the Rocky Mountains, we could see a return to severe weather across the Central Plains and the Northern Plains. So if that happens, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Starting with our temperature anomaly this weekend, we still have very cold weather that's hanging over the Midwest and the Great Lakes. That system will move further east as we head into Monday as it moves toward New England. And our low pressure system will finally move out of the country and move away from us. And warm weather will build up over the Rocky Mountains and the Northern Plains as well on Monday. By Wednesday and Thursday, that warm air will bring above average temperatures across the Northern Plains and the Midwest. So this is still about 7 days, 8 days away, but I think severe weather could return in the long term. Now, let's talk about the severe weather potential over the next few days. And we have a slight risk of severe weather from southern Maine to eastern Pennsylvania. Marginal threat from central Maine all the way into northern Georgia, where the biggest concern will be damaging winds. Large hail is also possible. And then there's also the potential for a few tornadoes. I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw a 5% risk of tornadoes in parts of far western Massachusetts, far northwest Connecticut, and southeastern New York, where I think there's a slightly higher threat for a few tornadoes this afternoon. And then as we get into Sunday, the severe weather threat will taper off. We'll have just a few isolated storms from the southeast up into the Rocky Mountains and into the Pacific Northwest. However, there will be some scattered showers and storms across the Midwest on Tuesday. No real severe weather is expected from there. By Wednesday and Thursday, coastal showers and storms across the southeast will continue. And then we'll likely start to see a little better weather across the Northern Plains and Rocky Mountains as we head into the weekend and early next week. Now, let's talk a little more about exactly how cold the next few days will be. Starting today, we'll be looking at temperatures across the Northeast and even across the Ohio Valley. with some areas dipping near freezing in northern Minnesota. But overall, we're talking mostly frost across the Midwest. Many areas will be in the mid to upper 30s and lower 40s tomorrow morning. By Sunday and Monday, temperatures will start to steadily rise. By Monday, temperatures will be back in the 70s across much of the Midwest, 90s across the Great Plains. Tuesday and Wednesday will likely be the warmest days of the week. By Wednesday, temperatures will be back in the 80s and 90s across much of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Iowa. And finally, next weekend, it's going to be very hot, maybe even back to around 100 degrees in Missouri and Iowa. So, it's going to get very hot very quickly. But again, enjoy this beautiful weather. We will continuously update the storm situation in the next news. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on CIA TV channel.